Hey everyone, welcome to a new series of developer updates. It's a monthly recap broken down by myself, Ryan, and with a NuCypher core team member. So today we have David Nuñez, NuCypher's CTO. Hola, David.
Hola,
How are you today?
fine, thank you.
Excellent. So David's joining us from Malaga right now. We appreciate the time to break this down for the community. So tell some people first about your professional journey and what led you to this point with NuCypher for those who may have not had the pleasure of knowing who you are in the company.
Sure. So I've been working with NuCypher for quite a long time. I was a PhD student first, and then a postdoc student in the University of Malaga in Spain, where I was doing research on cryptography, particularly on proxy re-encryption. I'm talking about 2014, 15, 16. And around that time is when NuCypher, which at that point was called ZeroDB, they were developing an encrypted database, and they were starting to look into cryptographic solutions for that. And one of them was proxy encryption, and they ended up using a library that I did and I open source. And when I found out that we started talking and like with time we started to develop like a relation on based on building some projects, some ideas, some consultancy work, and basically with time that ended up with me joining the company as cryptographer. That was in 2018, I think, and I basically for this last 3 years we'll be doing cryptography and a lot of engineering work. And lately, I also assumed the job of CTO. And I mean, it's been a very interesting experience for me, an extremely rewarding experience for me, because as I said, I was doing research on cryptography and on proxy encryption, and this is the opportunity. This was the opportunity to bring this to fruition. So yeah, it's been great these 3 years.
So from paper to implementation.
Right, from paper to implementation to running this thing in thousands of nodes around the world. So yeah, that's awesome.
Excellent. So there's been a lot of community focus on T and threshold network, and we'll get to that, but there are several other interesting efforts happening in parallel to that with the T launch. This includes NuCypher in the browser, which has sort of several layers to it, and what we're calling DKG or abiotic Alice. And I think abiotic Alice, you coined that one. So let's start with DKG or abiotic Alice, and tell us a little bit about that and how is that different from the way NuCypher works today.
Right. So
and why we need it.
Yeah. So one of the things that we can call current version of Cypher version 1 is the version that we started working on in 2017. And it's built, like everything is built on top of the crypto system that we have currently, which is called Umbral. So it's like, it works great. And like, to me, the power of Umbral and version 1 is that it gives the owner 100% control of their data. So the owner has the sole control and responsibility of delegating access, which is what the goal of the NuCypher network.
So this is currently Alice.
Second?
As we call it. This is currently Alice, as we
yeah,
call
this
it.
is exactly. So this is Alice, and this is for version 1. The thing is that with the new use cases that we've seen in the decentralized space and the Web3 space, there are many use cases where, although Alice or users or Alices in the around the world still want to have control of their data and their decisions about how the data is shared. At the same time, they also need some like flexibility and automation on regards on how to enforce such decisions. Like they don't necessarily want to be granting access express like directly themselves. So in some situations. So for example, this is particularly clear in examples where many people have reached to us about encrypted NFTs, for example, or
Sure.
platforms where there's a subscription model and data is encrypted, and essentially either buyers of an NFT or subscribers to some service will get the encrypted content. So from that perspective, then the owner of the data, Alice, is now not necessarily interested in granting access on a per case basis, but she wants to grant access on a conditional basis based on, for example, has this Bob paid for the NFT, or has this Bob paid for a subscription, which is different because in the first case, in the first case, no, in the current case of NuCypher version one,
Version 1.
yeah, Alice needs to know specifically who is Bob. Like, I want to give access to my friend Bob, whose public key is this one. But in this case, Alice would like to say something like, I would like to give access to anyone that pays for the NFT. And in that perspective, with proxy encryption, we would need to, that involves some sort of conditional encryption that would needs more advanced cryptography, because now you need to the moment in time where delegation happens, maybe Alice or the owner is not online anymore. So that's where we thought about this idea, because it's been a recurring request. So we came up with a new crypto system called Nube, which essentially gives Alice the possibility of using the network, the Cypher network again, but using it in a different way. So apart from doing the traditional proxy encryption that we've done in the past, there is an initial step where Alice can also say, I want to that some nodes in the NuCypher network can act on my behalf. And this is where the notion starts, the notion of DKG, which means distributed key generation. So basically, these nodes will engage in a sort of ritual and protocol where they together they create a version of Alice, let's say, that can grant access to Bob based on some conditions that the original Alice established on initially. Like, for example, I want to grant access to anyone that pays.
Excellent. And in terms of projects that have requested this, or you know, potential projects that say, hey, can you do this? Would you say that we've seen an increase in the amount of projects that are asking for this type of service?
Yeah, I mean, we've been you know, engaged with potential adopters since the beginning of the story of the NuCypher project itself in back to 2017. But we've seen how the last year, and particularly this last 6 months, or like this current year, it's been the where most people have been asking about this feature. I think because there are, for example, everything related to NFTs. Of course, there are a lot of ideas around how to, you know, use it to either be as a medium of having this encrypted content, or using the NFT as a sort of, you know, subscription to some service. Like both approaches are recurrent ideas, but in the end, for the NuCypher side, they are both very similar. That like we can service both with the same technology, and that's what we plan to do with DKG.
When do you think this would be ready?
Yeah, that's a bit difficult to tell, but we're working on that as we speak. I think that's something that we will start to have a much more clear shape in next quarter and start of next year. Essentially because there's a lot of things that we're already done. Like we have a lot of stuff done on the on the network side of the the communication side of the network. It's something that we already have for version 1, and we have our CLI client. We have web, a web application for interacting with NuCypher. Like we have many of the pieces. We already have the cryptographic scheme. We already have a first version of the cryptographic scheme. So now it's more about designing a more efficient and more resilient way of storing policies for the network, and more economically viable for users and for operators. But like there are a lot of pieces ready, so I think we will definitely see a lot of developments on next quarter. Yeah.
Awesome, that's so exciting. And assuming the threshold merger goes mostly according to plan, is this something that people would be able to expect to for their node to handle if they're running it on the threshold network?
I think since we want to deliver as soon as possible the merger with Keep for the threshold network, since the focus on that side is to be as soon as possible. So we most likely we will go with version 1 because it's already there, it's working, and from the perspective of the newest setting, the threshold network, it's simpler to just switch to the threshold network. But in parallel, we'll continue working on DKG Alice, and with the goal of once it's ready, we will integrate directly with threshold.
Great. It's exciting for all those potential threshold node operators. Good stuff. So let's switch gears and talk a little bit about NuCypher in the browser. How did this come about? Why NuCypher in the browser? And where do you see it going?
Right. So NuCypher in the browser is something that it fixes a hole in our stack, in the Cypher stack. The Cypher stack was thought from the perspective on that users would be running a NuCypher client locally. So that works great in many types of applications. But we've seen the last years, especially with the with the explosive growth of DeFi and NFTs, how in general, in the end, users will most likely will only use a browser. For example, just even running an Ethereum node, people usually prefer to not run personally an Ethereum node and use an external provider. So having, knowing that and seeing that there is some difficulties to integrate with current stack, precisely because of this requirement of running the Cypher node, we have done several different efforts to accommodate our current NuCypher version to a fully 100% browser experience. So there are several parts here. So from the start, something that we know that we will not compromise in any case, is to the cryptography part needs to be done in the most secure way and always abiding by the end-to-end principle. So cryptography will always continue to work in the end sides. In this case, will be run directly in the browser. So that's why we've been working on the Rust implementation of the Umbral cryptosystem, which using WebAssembly, you can get it on the browser. And then like that solves the question about how to, encrypt, decrypt data directly in the browser. But there are still like two other questions about how to use NuCypher solely from the browser. And one of them was, in order to interact with NuCypher, you need to, like, not the user, but like the client needs to know about the network, basically needs to discover what are the nodes of the network, who is online, who is not, etc. Right? So that's why we had a NuCypher client for users to run. But since we can't assume that's the case anymore all the time, we thought about something that we call Porter. So Porter is, in one sentence, Porter is the equivalent to Infura, but for NuCypher. So everything related to networking and discovery, P2P, and like high-level requests can be instead of routed through your local node, which was the previous approach, you can now do it through an external provider. So the external provider, it can be some third party, but it can be also you. You can have a NuCypher client in running externally, and maybe you don't have it in your computer, but you can run it externally, and then you can do the same request that you did to your local node, but now you do it through this outsourced provider. And in combination with Rust and in combination with some intermediary JavaScript layer, like you have all the pieces to replicate NuCypher, the whole NuCypher experience, but only from the browser.
Excellent. Now, how did this come about? Why put developer effort into this? Was it customer requests, potential projects, feedback that we've been getting?
Yeah. So in general, it's as usual. We try to talk regularly with adopters of NuCypher, and this being also another of the main recurring areas of feedback. Like it would be great to be possible to only use the browser. So from that perspective, it comes a lot of from requests from adopters. Yeah.
Great. And got to go back to the question on timing. When do we expect this to go live and people can start using it?
Yeah, this is going to be way sooner because many of these pieces are done to like a 95%. So the cryptographic scheme is done, except for some very minor details that need to be decided, and same for Porter. For Porter is, I mean, they're done and merged to our main developer branch. The intermediate layer is still, we're working on that, but I think that can be ready sooner than DKG, than the DKG service.
I'm sure all the hackathons we attend, all the builders and hackers will love this improvement.
Yeah, it's mostly about what stack will developers that want to use NuCypher will need. So before it was more a Python-based stack, so they had to run our client, which is what uses Python, or they need to use the Python API. But now it's more, you just need to use JavaScript for interacting with NuCypher. So we'll have like a library for doing that, and it will be easier to integrate with browser-based DMs.
so the last thing and sort of the biggest focus the community's been on is T, or threshold. So do you just want to give us a quick rundown of what to expect and what excites you most about the T threshold merger with Keep?
Right. So I think that the merger with Keep, it's going to be one of the major events, in my opinion, on the decentralized world, in the sense that it is the first time that something like this happens with two major um, projects with very established communities and projects in the ecosystem. So that's it's very interesting to see and to participate. It's also quite challenging. I think we've been working a lot during the last month since the beginning of this idea. We've been working a lot on trying to do this right. So one thing that we know for sure is that we don't want to do this in a way that feels rushed, or that left something like that can be a risk for the community or for the projects. So we are taking this very seriously and to think this very deeply, like the design of how to do this merger. And I think after this month and a lot of great brainstorming and discussion and joint sessions with both communities, not only directly with the team, but also with the communities. And that's something that is very rewarding about both projects, is that we have good communities behind it, from people that are not necessarily developers, but they have important opinions. They voice their their concerns, or the things that matter for them, and that's can be challenging, because you need to take everything into consideration, but at the same time it's very rewarding. And once that's done, I think that the joint network is going to be great, in the sense that we, like both communities, will have the benefits of two big projects that are established for a long time. And for example, for the NuCypher community, we were also for the last year thinking about how to leverage our position to run, a platform for wrap assets and similar things. And like this came like a great opportunity to do this without need to develop it ourselves. Like there is TBTC, which is a great approach to do this in a real decentralized way. Why compete where we can join forces? So in my opinion, that's a very clever solution to this, to merge instead of compete. And I'm very excited for that. I also very happy that the kid community will get to use PRE and or new developments on that area. And hopefully this also ignites some new ideas about new services that can leverage this new network.
What stage are we currently at? We have the snapshot coming out, and there are some audits scheduled. So again, we don't want this to be rushed, but why don't you give us just a quick 2 seconds on the timeline, the proposed timeline as it stands right now, subject to change.
Right. So, the core part that needs to be done right now is everything related to the smart contracts. Development of smart contracts is a very challenging area, because just a single error can cost you millions, and we are very aware of that. We thankfully both Keep and NuCypher, we have very good experience on smart contract development, and we are very aware of this. but I mean, as usual, it's important to have third parties looking at this. So right now we started with things that are most the core of the merger stuff, which would be contracts for the new token, contracts for the migration of tokens. And now we're working on the contract for staking in the new system, because now the thing, it seems simple from the outside, but there are many technical challenges here, because basically one of the things you were saying before, one of the goals here is no token holder left behind. And we have token holders, or not only token holders, but stakers that are locked in the NuCypher contract, or token holder or stakers that are locked in the key contract. And we want them to be part of Threshold Network from day one. And there are some technical challenges there. Like, it's not something, definitely it's nothing that can be solved, but we are working on that, and we want to do it right from the start. So we are iterating about how to do this, the staking part. So that's the part that it's taking a bit more time currently. But once that's done, which also that part includes how to embed governance in the system. Once that's done, essentially that means that the on-chain rules for the network, for the joint network, would be ready. So I think we will definitely see a lot of developments and tasks finished during September and October, and hopefully we can more or less comply with the early timelines that set around October.
Sure. And just to sort of reiterate, I think doing this safely is the most important thing. As we've seen, other projects, fall, get attacked and funds drained, and, people get rug pulled, and that always leaves a nasty stain on the project. So, it's best to sort of avoid that and do things right the first time. We've seen some questions pop up in Discord, and I've seen it in Telegram. People asking, would NuCypher ever go on to another L1, layer 1, or like a layer 2 type of chain? So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that. And, is this something that's currently being worked on? Or thought about, or what's your thoughts on NuCypher going on, say, a Solana, or a Polkadot, or a Matic, Polygon, Arbitrum, any of these?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's another area that it's very exciting for me particularly. We are currently an Ethereum-based project, and I love Ethereum, but I know that Ethereum can be very expensive to use. So for a service like NuCypher, Ethereum is not the best context, especially from the adoption point of view. Like, if the service is expensive to use, it's difficult to gain traction. So from that perspective, yes, I'm sure that Cypher will work, and it would be possible to create a data sharing policy from other networks. The thing is, we need to, and that's something I've been working like in high level terms, but initially, like, our current priority right now has been the merger and stuff like browser experience and the DKG part, but this is something that is definitely on our radar. I think it's more clear now than a couple of years ago how the future seems definitely multi-blockchain. Like there would be things living in different chains, or things living in layer 1s and layer 2s, and it will be important to be as interoperable as possible. And that's something that, since I was talking about before, with DKG Alice, we probably need to incorporate a lot of new things that would change. Like, I think that we can call that the everything related to DKG Alice, we can call it version 2 of NuCypher. And for version 2, interoperability with other chains would be one of the major requirements from the design. Yeah.
So exciting. I'm sure a lot of people would be happy to hear that. And if I'm not mistaken, someone's already working on a Polkadot bridge or a...
They are trying to use an existing bridge for from Ethereum to Polkadot, and they are basically building more like a policy model for the user side in Polkadot. This project is called NuLink, and they are they're working on this, and I think they have a grant from the Web3 Foundation, and it's been like they're currently working on that, and they're doing good stuff. And yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, could be the first. David, I want to thank you so much again. This was a lot longer than I thought, but it's all really good content, and I can't wait to get it out to the community. And yeah, I mean, this sort of format was brought to my attention by, I think someone put a Reddit poll up, and they wanted more interview style content. I think that was the one that was voted the highest. So here we are. So thanks for whoever did that. Shout out, and yeah, we'll see you guys. I plan on doing this sort of once a month with someone else from the team, or it might be yourself. So let's see where we are on October 15th. And yeah, thanks again.
Thanks, Ryan. I think it's been a very interesting opportunity, to talk about the things that we're doing, and hopefully the community thinks this is interesting for them as well.